The 359 is sponsored by USB Technology. The USB Implementers Forum reminds consumers that USB IF logos are displayed on certified USB products. So the next time you're shopping for a reliable USB charger, cable, or device, look for the logos. Get the whole story at enablingusb.org. Welcome and good morning, everybody, to the 359 podcast. It's episode 450 on Tuesday, August 28th. And today we're experimenting with DNA, but not dino DNA, despite the fact that Laura Dern from Jurassic Park is here.
Hi, everyone. I got the little tie, too.
I know. It's very spot on.
Couldn't resist.
So yeah, we'll be talking about DNA, but DNA as a way to store passwords.
And digital data in general.
And digital data. Yeah, this is bizarre. One of the oddest stories I've read. One of the coolest stories I've read, but still really strange. And we'll also be talking about Fortnite. Not necessarily about the game. We don't have Alfred with us to talk about that, but we'll talk about some of the security issues that have come up with Fortnite, and in particular the installer for the Android version of the game. As always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Brian will pick out the best, and we'll get to them in 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
From 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Chang, and with me is special guest Bridget Carey to talk about, well, one of the oddest tech stories I've encountered in a while. She wrote about the ability to store passwords for cryptocurrency like Bitcoin in DNA.
Yes, in the building blocks of life.
What? So how does this work?
All right, there's so many levels to this, but we'll break it down real simple. Scientists for a couple years now have found a way to store files, computer files in DNA. We're talking movies, animated GIFs, gift cards, whatever, ones and zeros of binary. They're really converted to the code of DNA, which is 4 letters, G, T, C, and A.
Right.
So you're really talking about a conversion here. You know, ones and zeros equal A, T, C, and G. And so one company has turned this into a business and said, you know what, who would want to store something in DNA? Maybe people who have a lot invested in Bitcoin and want to keep their passwords, their keys essentially, extra safe. And so with a company called Carver, you spend $1,000.
Carver is just appropriately like gruesome.
Yeah.
Great name.
Yeah, chopping up DNA. Yeah, and really, you're taking synthetic DNA. This is nothing that's alive. I know people think.
I think that's the first thing when you think of when you say DNA. It's like that seems.
You can print DNA like anything right now. You can just make up an order of your GTCs and A's and just print it out the way you want it in a lab. It's synthetic. It sits in a tiny vial, sometimes suspended in fluid, as in the case of these customers doing it with Carver. And really, it's an encrypted password that is transformed into the code of DNA. If you want to unencrypt it, go to a lab, read the DNA, then know the secret code to transfer those letters back into ones and zeros. And so after all those steps are done, then you can maybe go retrieve your key. You wouldn't do this normally.
And how much does this cost?
Yeah. Transferring data into DNA is a very expensive process right now. So just for the 50 bytes of a password, right, that's $1,000. So it costs $1,000 to do this. Of course, if you have a big investment, you might want to do it. That's why.
All right. So let's talk about Fortnite. The blockbuster battle royale game hit a snag early on when it launched on Android. Just 2 days after it became available, Google found a vulnerability with the installer that you really need to download to get the game. You can't actually get it on Google Play. And so, Epic, definitely the developer behind Fortnite, patched up the game, but security experts are warning that this is really just the tip of the iceberg for potential security problems for the game. Yeah,
like who's going to go and find the update when there's another problem found? This is very complicated for consumers who just want to play.
And just as a bit of background, Epic wanted to get around Google Play's requirement to offer up a 30% cut to Google for any kind of purchases. So they decided to just go and force players to download the installer and do what's known as sideloading a game. Which generally is bad security practice. You can't do that on an iPhone. Androids do let you do that. Android phones do, but it's not really recommended. A lot of the programs that you sideload tend to be malware, and so a lot of security experts are saying, one, this is just bad practice, getting people thinking that sideloading a game is good. But beyond that, they sort of looked at the number of games or the number of knockoff Fortnite games that are out there that you can sideload, and most of them are like spammy, have more ads, but they're not terrible. But most of the experts say that this is just the start. Like, you'll see more complex and sophisticated malware develop down the line. And the fact that you're doing this through this installer makes it a bit more dangerous.
Oh yeah. It's easy to fall prey to like a fake Fortnite. Even what if the main Google Play Store even has like now.
Like their
bad
own
one.
fake. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just messy. I don't like it.
And exactly, some of the games they work exactly like Fortnite, but they just have like heavy doses of ads. So basically, someone's taking a ripped off version of it. That's not the worst thing in the world. Like they're not compromising your security, but you can imagine other versions of the game could include malware that's far more dangerous. All right, for more of these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Bridget Carey.
Thanks for listening. So we didn't really get to this podcast, but I'm fascinated by the idea that...
All right, that's a wrap on recording the audio
never mind.
podcast, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Now I'm going to jump into the chat and bring out your questions and comments about DNA storage. This is the weirdest day we've ever had on the show. Bridget, why do you do this to my brain?
This was such a wild story when I stumbled upon it, and it took me a little while to stitch it all together with the research I had to dive into to understand DNA and what's being done right now, and kind of why science in general has been looking at why are we putting computer files in DNA? Like, what's the point? And it really comes down to the fact that this is a much more efficient way to store, these big files. We as humans are just producing so much data right now. These massive farms of servers. We're gonna run out of space, and it's just DNA is so tiny and it fits so much.
The DNA part, I mean, that's fascinating, but I did find it interesting, and I didn't really think about it. The idea that because we generate so much data, taking photos, emails, videos, whatever, all of that needs to be stored. And yes, like personally, I feel like I'm always running out of space, but I didn't really think about it from like a big picture perspective. Like as a human race, we're like starting to like run out of places to store all this data, right?
Well, it's more like what some research has shown is that by the year, I think 2025, 2040, something around then, if we keep storing things on like hard drives, we won't have enough silicon worthy material to do it. So what we're using is magnetic tape, like the same tape that's on a cassette tape and a VHS. It lasts about 20, max 30 years, but before it disintegrates, and so it's still a lot of room. And but DNA, it's very expensive to write DNA.
Yeah.
The researchers got 2 megabytes on DNA, and it costs $7,000.
So does it, the more memory you put, or the more data you put onto a DNA strand, the more expensive it is?
It's writing it. It's creating the DNA. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just takes time, and right now it's not cheap to print out these long strings, because the more you have, the more DNA you have. It's possible. Microsoft, got it done recently in February with like a huge amount, but they're Microsoft and they have a lot of money for this research.
Well, and you made the point that you actually have to store something, or it's recommended you store this in the freezer. Like, can the DNA go bad?
Yes, DNA goes bad if it's out and subjected to heat and
So
outside elements. But if it's in a cold, dry place, it definitely can last like hundreds of years.
Sorry, I can't log in right now. My password has gone stale.
Yeah.
It will. Yeah, this is not your main way of logging in, right? This is something that takes 2 days to retrieve because you got to send it to a lab. So we could just double click a file right now in the cloud much faster. So people were going, all right, what if I wanted to make this like my long-term backup of like my family's photos and pass that down to generations?
Right.
CD drives no longer in computers. I found an old floppy disk. It took me a bit to be able to find something to play an old floppy. Technology keeps changing. DNA will always be there as long as we have humans and we're reading DNA.
Well, until Elon Musk gets a hold of it.
And a refrigerator to store the DNA.
They are working on ones that are less susceptible to like elements, but right now there are, you're right. Refrigerator, keep it cool, maybe a wine cellar,
Ooh, okay.
And then it's
I guess if you're spending thousands
now.
of dollars on a password, you probably can afford the wine cellar.
And that's really the only consumer right now, because you and I aren't going to fork over a couple grand just to save a couple baby photos. So it's about getting over that cost hurdle, and once we do, then maybe it could be more feasible for long-term storage, not for short term, but definitely like things you want to save and don't need to pull up for a while. Historical stuff.
Yes, DNA storage and winos, the bougiest of technology. Let's jump into the chat and start start taking some questions. There's this really interesting, like, real-time development. I can give you time codes to sync up to. About 20 seconds into the show, Jorge comments, "Use DNA to store your passwords? Heck yeah, I'm all over that." About 53 seconds into this show, that's too complicated and too expensive. Stick to just remembering your passwords and change them all the time.
Yeah.
Jorge is all of us.
Some of the folks who, like, I talked to one customer of this service who's doing it for his Bitcoin wallet, and this is the backup to his backup. This is like if his current system goes wrong and his place gets burned down, the paper's gone, the hard drive is corrupted. At least, he's got these files that he put in different locations, and he can, call up a friend and have it sent to a lab. So
he's not storing it like in the fridge in his kitchen then. It's probably
maybe one is and maybe one somewhere else.
Okay,
The thing about having Bitcoin, for those who don't know, is that all the responsibility is on you. If you lose your password, that's it. There's no way to recover it. So there's a lot of pressure to be like, oh my gosh, I better not lose this password or you can't access it ever again. And that's why people are motivated to spend $1,000, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you've got like millions in investment,
or if you think it'll be worth millions,
right.
it's about like, if this is the long-term retirement plan,
Sure.
Maybe you'll fork over a little
bit. If you
bit.
think it's gonna be worth millions down the line, I feel sorry for you.
You
never know. You never know.
Next comment flying in is coming from Jacob Lombardo. He says, "We accept credit cards, Google Pay, your DNA, your blood."
I was asking, can we store the information in our own DNA? Like, are we at the point where, like, right now it's a lab, it's synthetic, it's just a bunch of chemicals stitched together. When can it be inside myself? And of course they said, and so I talked to a geneticist who did this with putting a movie in DNA, and her name is Dina Zielinski. She's in my report. And she said, all right, it's possible, but there's so much about DNA we don't know right now.
Right.
So it's not recommended to mess with your genome, kids. But maybe just wear it on your necklace. The fake, synthetic DNA if you wanted to, store something on there, or keep it, But then again, keep it in a cool place is probably the best. It's at the end of the day, I want a thumb drive to be my actual thumb, but
plug it in.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's the far future.
That was my favorite quote from your video. Also, like, can you just imagine this brings like a whole new level to the concept of like a blood oath?
Oh yeah.
In fact, what if that is a way to do more bio-authentication of passwords too?
I have to prick my finger every time because that feels painful.
Yeah. Well, maybe you won't have to access the file often.
I predict
that's how I unlock my iPhone. Actually, every time you got to stab yourself to unlock your iPhone. iPhone 15.
I predict a really, really terrible sequel to The Fly with this one, where some guy like stores his password and turns into a personified credit card.
Just slowly morphs into like a giant plastic card.
But I still nominate Jeff Goldblum to play that role.
He would do a bang up job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, coming in next from Alex Mitchell. How is DNA storage not in spy movies already? I feel like there was one. They didn't do it in Kingsman, but it was like another rando. It wasn't like a Jason Statham action movie either, but there's something in the back of my brain where I remember seeing it somehow, or at least it was like...
Brian, you know more about movies than me, but I have not stumbled on this personally, and I feel like that's not too far from the future. In fact, here's something to get you really messed up in your head. We're talking about DNA. What if a virus could store information? That's another rabbit hole I started to go down in my research.
Really?
Like a strand to a different kind of way of thinking about data. So yeah, there's a lot of weird science going on now, guys. And I'm just saying, maybe in 5 to 10 years, we could be hearing more about this.
It's like I caught a cold, but actually it's your password that I caught.
That's only meanings of virus. Oh man. Yeah, exactly.
Srinjoy says, what if this is a conspiracy from 23andMe for getting your vital passwords when you submit your DNA for genetic testing?
Oh, man.
Oh, that's the best conspiracy theory we've had on this show in about 3 days.
Yeah, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give my DNA to anyone just yet. I'm pretty good there.
Also, thanks, Srinjoy, for the shout-out. You could just follow my lead and get everything tattooed on you. Alex Mitchell wants us to move on to Fortnite. He says, I would believe that Fortnite should just try to make their own phone. We'd be going back to like those little Tiger Electronic games.
Are you being sincere, or was that sarcasm?
Alex,
are you being sincere? A Fortnite phone? I mean, it's phenomenally successful, but it's also a game. It's one game. I don't know how many people are actually going to buy a Fortnite phone.
But shout out to Brian for the Tiger reference. I had a lot of those Tiger handheld games.
That's what I picture, though. It's like the standalone
Yeah.
game that you throw in your pocket, but it's just Fortnite. But it'd be HD, and it'd be
But it also,
Wi-Fi
it
enabled
also
and all
works
that
as a phone.
stuff.
It does nothing else. It's just the phone and Fortnite and nothing else.
I mean, that's what most people's devices are these days, as is.
All right, fair point. I
Next,
spent, actually, to be fair, I spent a total of 10 minutes, I think, 10 or 15 minutes playing Fortnite, getting killed, and then I deleted it. I've since deleted the game because I can't.
It takes time.
Yeah.
flipping back into DNA, this comment just came in from Spiral Feather. It says, okay, I just tuned in, but I came over because of what an amazingly bad idea this sounds like. I don't want my password stolen because someone found a strand of my hair on the floor of a Starbucks. Now, just to reiterate, this isn't about embedding it in your DNA.
Yep.
It's using the genetic code that does constitute definitive DNA without being part of a human.
He brings up an interesting point in that, you know, I guess you're storing the DNA in some other secure place.
Yeah, so let's say someone
don't keep
takes
it
your
on your
vial of
keychain.
DNA, right? Like you need to have. So here, talking about what this one company is doing, I was like, all right, what if I just go in your freezer and just take your vial
Yeah.
of synthetic DNA, and not only would so someone have to send it to a lab, and all they get back is their version of Gattaca, G, T, A, and C,
Okay.
and they need to know what that represents in their version of a code. Like I made up one where A would be 0, 0 in binary, T is 0, 1, and
Okay.
you kind of string it together like that. But whatever their formula is, and then from there you'll get a binary. But is that the passcode or is that an encrypted passcode? You need to know. There's many layers here.
So there's like another level of encryption that they have to
Yeah.
decrypt for you to actually get the legit password.
It depends how much you want to go down that rabbit hole of encryption layers,
Okay.
but you can make it. You don't have to actually give the DNA makers like your actual password at any point. And the lab that's printing it out for you doesn't even know what they're doing. They're just getting a string of letters going, okay, well, here you go. Because they get it all the time from science students who are like doing experiments and research.
Okay.
So they
But
just
then
see
it's
it.
just another strand of DNA.
Right. For
Yeah.
them, they see an anonymous, order coming in for like a bunch of, GTs, A's, and C's. Okay,
Right.
here you go. And it's just in a micro vial this big, and it's just a tiny little drop of liquid.
Well, there you go. Safe.
Let's jump on back over to Fortnite for our Twitch audience. Now, I've played it a little bit, but I've only played it on my Switch. I have not played it on mobile. Have we seen other security vulnerabilities like this exploited because somebody got a little big for their britches and wanted to jump around the download store?
That's the thing. This is a fairly unusual situation. Most game makers or
It's usually the
developers,
other way around.
most developers will cooperate and work in the Play Store because they want that visibility. Epic and Fortnite it's an exception because it's already such a phenomenon. People know what Fortnite is. They want it, and so they were able to get around the Play Store with their own installer. But that also means things like if Google wants to send down a security patch for the game, when they do in the Play Store, it's just an update to your app. Here, you've got to actually run the game for the installer to run the update. So if you haven't played your game in a while, or if you haven't touched Fortnite, you haven't loaded the installer. The installer can't actually update and actually add the patch to itself. So it's still vulnerable. So that's a lot of the experts that we talk to say that's not great practice
I
in
feel
general.
like I've always heard this the other way around. Like Angry Birds, always had a lot of, fakes that were on the non-app store
yes.
side, or
Yeah.
or you had to be aware of like things that were in the app store that never heard of a company, not going to the app store.
Yep. Usually it's the point of those app stores. I mean, it's almost anonymous. It's a brand name thing. Like, it's safe because it's in Google Play, because Google.
Although then
just
you don't always know.
You don't always know, but Google at least takes some effort to vet the programs or the apps that are in the Google Play Store. Like when it's side loaded like this, it's the wild, wild west. Like, and a majority of, not majority, but a lot of the apps that you do side load that aren't from Play Store typically include some form of malware. And Epic was no different.
Did it come pre-installed on the Samsung phone, or is it just
You had to install it. You had to
Wow.
install the side loader as well.
Give it time. 6 months down the line, you'll get a Fortnite exclusive phone with exclusive downloaded content.
Samsung
with a
did
skin
have
and-
they had exclusive skins for the game. Like if you bought
But you'll be able to pay $200 extra at the store and get this preloaded in the whole shebang.
oh, maybe.
I'm calling it right now. Life Improvement says, wait. It was Google who found the vulnerability in Fortnite? The people they were trying to get around paying?
Yes. Google is a Google researcher or an engineer who discovered the vulnerability. That was vetted by other security researchers. It's not like some sort of conspiracy theory that like Google somehow embedded a vulnerability into a installer that they had zero access to. I think they just found it and realized that this was going to mess with Android phones. So that's
and
why
their customers, right?
Exactly.
And the patch is forthcoming or is it out now?
The patch is out. It's available now. There was some back and forth. Google alerted Epic immediately. Epic's actually asked for 90 days for Google to keep it quiet for 90 days so their players could install the patch. Google went ahead and just announced it a week later, which is actually pretty standard practice. The security experts that we talked to said that you actually generally want to get the word out to get people to actually be aware of this patch and install it. Otherwise, if they kept quiet about it, then no one would have known there was an issue.
Yeah, and it would just spread like a wildfire.
Yeah.
Why would they sit on that? Just so that they wouldn't get embarrassed?
I think it brings to the point that I think Epic doesn't quite understand or grasp the magnitude of security issues they're opening up by doing this kind of end around from Google Play.
Wonder if they'll actually kind of sit back and reconsider and then jump on board.
I doubt it. They're making too much money. This is all about money in the end. Like not having to give up a 30% cut on one of the most successful games or revenue driving games out there. That's a lot to give up. 30% is a huge cut.
Even if they do look like fools.
Yeah.
So to flip side of that, do you think we're going to get more and more developers going down this path? Even with the
You'd
inherent
have to
risks?
be a big, popular
exactly
game. But...
You couldn't, like, if you were just starting out, it'd be impossible.
And if it's a casual game, people aren't gonna just do this, and hunt out a way to do it.
Fortnite for sure has,
it's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly, but also a lot of money went into the game. It's definitely a quality title. Resources went into it. So it's not like the standard casual mobile game where, a developer's working on it in their house, right? This was a big business for Epic.
DC147 just points out that he read on RS that Google only disclosed it so soon because it was in fact fixed. If it hadn't been, they'd probably have informed Epic and waited the standard 90 days.
Yes, you're right. There was a patch available.
I didn't know there were so many rules to the whole
there's an etiquette
press
to it.
kit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We are just about out of time. Let's take one for the road. This is a mission that we're being sent on by our friend Sunjoy.
Ooh.
Elon Musk stored his passwords in the Tesla Roadster. Let's get on that.
Wait, what? Do you want us to get Elon Musk to do this, or do you want us to break into his Roadster? I'm not really sure what the request is.
I think we need to do a space heist.
I will just say I'm not messing with Elon Musk. That guy is pretty unpredictable. Who knows what he'll do?
Can we at least verify that story? Do we know? Was that a...
I've never heard it.
I haven't heard the story. I haven't heard the story.
Wait, with Elon Musk, anything is possible, guys.
It's true.
Good and bad. All right, that's it. We are out of time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. That was a fun one. I can't wait to hear more about this DNA exploration. Bridget, keep us posted.
Thank you.
If they're looking for human trials, I'll jump in.
All right. Well, the 359 is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, the Amazon Echo, and, of course, CNET.com. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Bye, folks.
Well, thanks.